What's happening? Happy Monday to all of you. Thanks for joining me as always. It is very much appreciated. Everything Pat's a New England Patriots podcast, and training camp is coming up on Wednesday. We are 2 days away from the beginning of camp. I am really excited about this football season. Can't wait. See what happens out there at camp. Can't wait to read about Mike Vrabel and Stefon Diggs and Drake May. Today, as a matter of fact, Locked On Patriots, the episode that we released earlier today, I talk about Stefon Diggs and some other injury news. Unfortunately, some not so great injury news, but the Diggs stuff looks to be pretty optimistic. Looks like he's going to be ready for day one, which is fantastic. You can go check that out whenever you have some time. Again, Locked On Patriots. You can find it everywhere, YouTube, every platform. It's out there. And I appreciate everybody who watches that, listens to that, and also watches or listens to this podcast. All right, Mike Vrabel's first Patriots training camp, 2 days away. And I was thinking about this earlier today. This is the most excited that I have been for a, first-time Patriots head coach since Bill Parcells. And you might sit there and go, Nick, what are you talking about? Bill Belichick, GOAT, greatest of all time. When Bill got hired, we all remember, most people didn't know what to expect from Belichick. He was coming from the Jets. His only head coach stint was terrible in Cleveland. And nobody really had a grasp as to how Belichick was going to be and what he was going to do. So in Belichick's first training camp, it wasn't like I was doing cartwheels all excited. Bill Parcells, absolutely. Mike Vrabel, yes. This is as excited as I have been about a first-time head coach with this organization since Bill Parcells. The Belichick GOAT conversation, that status came much later, as we know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years into the tenure with the Patriots. That's when we started talking about Belichick being a GOAT. So I'm super excited about Mike Vrabel. And, the reputation of Vrabel is obvious. Many will tell you he's a top 10 head coach in the league. Of course, he was inactive last year, so he's not on any of those lists. But many people in the league will tell you he is a top-notch head coach. He is respected by coaches, players, executives. He was the hottest name, along with Ben Johnson, during this past offseason for any prospective head coach job. And the Patriots land him. And Mike Reese, over the weekend at ESPN, he dove into what we should expect from a Mike Vrabel training camp. And Reese actually spoke with Ben Jones, former center of the Tennessee Titans, very close with Vrabel. And Ben Jones had a lot to say about Vrabel's first camp here in New England. Here's what Reese wrote. As for what takes place on the field, Jones highlights one theme, details. Quote, everything has a purpose. You're not just going out there to bang heads every day to see who is the toughest guy. And he preaches that in meetings that the coach, players should be able to ask them, why are we doing this? What does this help us with? How can we attain our goals from it? So every person is held accountable. Jones continued to say, you're not just going out there filling a sheet with drills that don't carry over to team portion of the practice. And you're not just going out there doing the same drills every day. This training camp is going to be completely different than last year's training camp. Don't forget, when the season was over, remember what some players said about Gerard Mayo. Remember that there were players that spoke to the media that said that they felt that they were in trouble almost right away. Through camp, dealing with stuff, all of that, all of the unknowns with Mayo. And players felt like Mayo was, along with the coaching staff, almost making it up as they went along. They were throwing a lot of stuff up against the wall. Mike Vrabel's not going to do that. Vrabel has a plan, and that's the biggest thing about Mike Vrabel and the hiring of Vrabel. And I said this at the time. He understands how to build a program. Mayo did not. So Mayo's training camp was much, much different. And players spoke to the media after the season was over and said, hey, look, we knew early on, we knew early camp that the coaching staff was not quite up to snuff. That is not going to be the situation this season. It is not going to be the situation in 2 days from now when Patriots kick off camp with Vrabel leading this franchise. It's going to be completely different. And it's important It's important that Vrabel's going to stress the details. It's important, as Ben Jones talks about, not just going out there filling a sheet with drills that don't carry over to the team portion of practice. It's important. It's important for the players to look at Vrabel, watch him in action during this first camp, and understand that he knows what he's doing. Because when the players know that the coach knows what he's doing, it builds trust. It builds trust between the staff and the players. It builds trust between the players and the head coach, because the players truly believe that Vrabel is trying to find the best way possible to use them, the best way possible to win football games. And when you have that trust built within the coaching staff and the players, and that relationship has that kind of trust, which obviously some guys last year did not have that trust in the coaching staff. I'm not telling you it was all 53 players, but there were a number of guys that did not quite trust the idea that Mayo and his staff knew what they were doing. But when you do have that trust between the player and the head coach, when you have that trust between the locker room and the coaching staff, it builds confidence, it builds belief. And the guys in that room truly believe that they're being led by somebody who knows what they're talking about and knows what they are doing. And that's crucial to build the team's confidence during this portion of the summer. You want to get to those joint practices feeling great. You want to walk into week one feeling like you have a firm grasp as to what you want to do and who you want to be. And I just feel like with Vrabel leading the charge, that is going to be the situation this season. It allows the team the opportunity to build days, so to speak. If you believe in your staff and you have confidence and you know that your head coach is going to be on the details, it allows you to continue to stack days, right? You stack day after day after day, and you're starting to build some momentum. You're not running into a brick wall head first. That confidence, that belief, listening to your coach because you believe your coach knows what he's talking about, and you stack those days early. You want to stack those days in late July, early August, so when you do get to that joint practice against Washington, you feel like you're ready. And when you get to the joint practice against Minnesota the following week, you feel like you're ready. This time of year is all about stacking those days, stacking that momentum, heading into the first game of the season. All right, I've got more thoughts on this, more thoughts from Ben Jones about Mike Vrabel and what we should expect, what we should anticipate from Patriots camp as Vrabel being the head coach for the first time of this organization. But don't forget, click that thumbs up. If you're watching us on YouTube during this live stream, click the thumbs up. It helps us with the algorithm. If you're watching on demand, you can also like this episode. I appreciate every single one of you. Throw your comments in as we see. Anonymous saying hello to everybody. Camp this week, indeed. Nelson saying, what's up, Nick? Happy Monday. Happy Nelson. So don't forget to throw your comments in. How are you feeling? How are you feeling 2 days before camp kicking off? Are you as excited as I am? Are you as pumped for the Mike Vrabel era to truly begin in a couple of days like I am? So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 7,000 subscribers. Appreciate every single one of you. Also appreciate those at Spotify and Apple Pods who rate, review, and follow the program. Anonymous jumps in with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Anonymous. My first super chat in a while. Here is to Nick's move and camp finally starting. Thank you, Anonymous. I appreciate the 20. As you can see, if you're watching this video, still a bit of a makeshift studio, quote unquote, that I'm working in right now. Hopefully within the next couple of days, that will be changed. We'll be ready to go. We had some internet issues over the last day or two, but here we are, ready to go. Hopefully I get to move into my podcast room within the next 24 to 36 hours. And again, thank you for the $20, Anonymous. Those super chats always mean the world to me. And look at Amstel 54, jacked and pumped, all in caps. My guy, Stephen Coakley, super excited. Look forward to hearing about the joint practices. Yeah, me too. Can't wait for it. All right, let's get back to the business at hand. So Vrabel, leading his first training camp as the Patriots head coach in 2 days. Mike Reese meets up with Ben Jones, who played for Tennessee, very close to Vrabel, was a team leader for that Titans team. And Jones had a lot to share about what we should expect from Vrabel's first camp. And Here's more from Reese with Jones. If it mirrors how Vrabel approached training camp in Tennessee, which is likely, there will also be a mix of physical work and scaled back practices. One of the things Jones said he appreciated about playing for Vrabel is how Vrabel cared for players' health, balancing the intensity of physical and mental stress with making sure there were enjoyable moments. Here's what Jones told Reese, quote, "You think he's some hard-nosed tough guy that played with Belichick through those years and won those Super Bowls, but he is very detailed on how the body recovers. He puts together a plan with trainers, equipment guys in the weight room." And this is part of the analytical conversation that we have had since Vrabel took over. Vrabel talks about analytics. He talks about on the field, but he also hammers the point of analytics away from the field. And he looks into things. He looks into numbers. He looks into player recovery and how to get guys to recover quicker, how to make them more efficient when it comes to the schedule. And so that's what Ben Jones is talking about. Vrabel has a clear understanding of balancing the physicality and the mental stress that you go through during camp. He understands how to balance that with some enjoyable moments and some much needed rest. And he digs into those analytics to figure out what needs to be done at the highest of levels to make sure that his team is recovering physically and they are ready mentally. I love this quote from Ben Jones. Listen to this. His whole goal is to win games, not to win camp. That is a fantastic quote. Vrabel's goal is to win games, not win camp. He understands the difference between what camp is to provide to the staff and the players and what the games that count, that you win and lose, actually mean to the football team. He's not out there day one of training camp trying to win the training camp prize. He's out there understanding that the role that he is serving is to make sure that this team is absolutely unequivocally ready by week 1 against the Raiders at Gillette Stadium. And everything that he's going to do from July 23rd, and this started OTAs, it started at mandatory minicamp, everything that they do over the next several weeks is to get to that moment, is to get to week 1 feeling like you are fully prepared. And the head coach is not trying to win July. He's not trying to win August. He's trying to win when you get to September. He's trying to win when you get to December, late in the season. And he understands the early steps of that process and how you can get there. More from Ben Jones. I think that approach is a lot different from most everybody else. Most everybody else is, quote, "We have to be a tough physical team right away." He knows, Jones talking about Vrabel, he knows we want a tough team when it comes to week 1 through week 18. We don't need to beat everybody up early in camp. And Reese writes that one example of how Jones said Vrabel achieved that with the Titans was not having offensive and defensive linemen yards apart, which eliminated contact and collisions, but allowed the linemen to work on hand placement, feet, and drive. Those are the details. He's less worried about the collisions and the physicality during camp than he is about the technique and working on the details with the offensive and defensive linemen, making sure that those guys understand the feet, the drive, the hand placement, all that stuff. That's what he's focused on. He's not focused on knocking heads. He's not worried about that. He understands and he believes that, hey, if I teach the technique and these guys go into the season with that technique, they're going to have contact. They're going to be physical in joint practices. They're going to have some physical practices. Don't get me wrong. This is not going to be a soft camp by any means. But Vrabel's going to space it out. Joint practices are going to be heavily competitive. Preseason games are going to be competitive. Whoever's out there, that's when you get your physicality in. And when I read this from Ben Jones, the idea of winning games and not winning camp, it brought me back to last year. It brought me back to training camp last year, because last year's camp, I was there. We were all talking about it. Last year's camp was pretty grueling, and many people were surprised of how hard camp was and what Gerard Mayo was doing. And guys were very physical. I remember dudes taking dudes down to the ground early in training camp, and I didn't think it was ideal. I remember Del Pettis. I think it was Del Pettis jumping on the back of Hunter Henry, and Henry kind of fell awkwardly. And I'm like, yeah, let's not blow out Hunter Henry's knee in July. And we talked about it where, Belichick, he went a little softer as time went on leading camp. And he didn't ask the guys to be as physical, and it wasn't as grueling. Mayo, he came out, and that camp last year was pretty grueling. And it's interesting because last year's camp was tough. And then when you look at it in hindsight, it seems like it was a mistake. It seems like it was a mistake by Mayo and his coaching staff to come out early in camp and go that hard. It backfired on some of the guys. So I feel much better about the balance this team is going to strike with Vrabel leading this training camp. Have more thoughts, but first jump to a super chat from Charlie. Happy to be here live. Happy to be here alive and live. Can't wait for the summer to heat up. Thanks for the work, Nick. Yeah, I truly can't wait. I mean, this is when we start getting into it. We're 2 days away from camp. Start talking about actual football again after the last several weeks of slow. And we know it's all slow. When you talk about June and July, we fight through those months, but we're 2 days away from camp. 48 hours away, the Patriots will have already wrapped up their first day of training camp. So back to Ben Jones in those comments about winning games and not winning camp and not worried about stressing to be tough and physical, right away, right at the early stages of camp. And this, again, I think highlights the player-head coach relationship. Vrabel doesn't look at these guys as just quote-unquote bodies. And he understands that because he's gone through it, he understands that they're going to need their space. They're going to need their time. They're going to need certain days off. He understands that. And if you go hardcore the first 2 or 3 days of camp, how does that, play a toll on the rest of the guys out there and their bodies if you go too physical too early? And this is another example of the head coach understanding, okay, we were in fifth gear yesterday, but today we got to ease off the pedal. We're going to go hard on that day, but we're going to ease off the pedal the next couple of days. We might ease off the pedal before we get into those joint practices, because in those joint practices, we are going to go harder. It's just understanding it. And Vrabel played the game, and so did Gerard Mayo, so that's not the answer to all, right? But Vrabel played the game. He understands the wear and tear, and he understands that how you handle July and August is how you get ready for December. And if you handle July and August the right way, then you are physically and mentally not beaten down midway through the season. And handling this camp in that way is crucial, because don't forget, the Patriots bye week doesn't hit until week 14. Last year, the Patriots had the bye week 14. And I do wonder, when you look back, going so hard during camp last year, not having a bye week until week 14, that put a lot of tax on the bodies of those players, because you went hard right away. You had a very grueling physical camp. You had the joint practice against Philly where you got your tuchus handed to you. Then you went right into the season, and you didn't have your bye week until week 14. And so you're worried about guys running out of gas. And I'm sure Vrabel is looking at this and saying, we don't have a bye week until week 14. We can't go hard 24/7, 365. If we do that, these guys will be dead by Halloween. We can't do that. We've got to make sure that we're planning this out correctly, because we have to be able to have all the gas that we have through the first 13 weeks. We can't have that dead last 3 or 4 weeks before going into the bye week. We've got to make sure our guys have enough to get to the bye week. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the camp is even more detailed when it comes to rest, recovery, and how much to ask from how many guys. It just makes sense. The Patriots also have 2 sets of joint practices this year. Last year, it was just the Eagles. This year, you've got joint practice against Washington. You've got joint practice against Minnesota. Now, how much do they go? How hard do they go? I would imagine they're going to go pretty hard in those joint practices. You only had one of those last year. So you've got 2 joint practices, and you don't have a bye week until week 14. So you really have to make sure you're managing all of these players. And I would expect them to push pretty hard. I would expect them to push pretty hard when you get to those joint practices. That's when you push the pedal all the way down to the floor. And I'm sure that's what Vrabel is planning on. He's building this up. He's going to stack days early. And then you get into that training camp fully when you get to that joint practice against Washington. And then you put the foot down. And then you ease off for a couple days. And then you go right back at it. You put the foot down again against Minnesota. One last note before I get to TreVeyon Henderson and the news that happened over the weekend. Doug Marone, on the second episode of Forged in Foxborough, said the following, quote, "It's probably the best camp I've ever been a part of as far as how the offensive and defensive line work against each other," unquote. And I want to put that into perspective. Doug Marone has been in football for more than 30 years. Doug Marone has been in the NFL for a long time. Doug Marone was not just a one-time head coach. He was a two-time head coach in the NFL. And somebody with that vast amount of experience, somebody who has run their own camps multiple times, for somebody like Marone to say that, to me, that carries weight. It's probably the best camp I've ever been a part of as far as how the offensive and defensive line work against each other. And that directly goes back to what we just talked about with Ben Jones. The details on the offensive and defensive lines. Not as worried about the collisions, worried about the technique. And I would imagine that's a big part. That's a big part of why Doug Marone said what he said in that second episode, that this was the best camp that he has been a part of when it comes to working with the offensive and defensive lines and how they work together. That's somebody who's been around for much longer than a quarter of a century. He has seen the best. He has seen the worst. And so when you're in the game for 30 plus years, you're a two-time head coach who has run plenty of your own camps. That says a lot to me about what Vrabel accomplished in the early camp process. I am excited. I couldn't be more excited for Mike Vrabel. We're about 48 hours away, and I think all Patriots fans should be pumped. All right, something else we should all be pumped about. TreVeyon Henderson is signed, sealed, and delivered. We talked about this on Friday's episode. I said during that episode, I would not be surprised if, by the end of the weekend, we hear that Henderson is ready to go, that Henderson comes to an agreement. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if that happened. And it happened much quicker than that. We got done with the podcast on Friday, and the news of Henderson agreeing to a contract came out like a couple of hours after the podcast. So the Patriots took care of business. TreVeyon Henderson is signed. Every single one of their draft picks is now signed. Henderson gets a 4-year, $11.143 million deal. Interestingly enough, the Patriots gave Henderson a full guarantee. It is a fully guaranteed deal. Every cent fully guaranteed for Henderson. So you've got him locked up for 4 years. This is a big step in the right direction for this offense. He is going to be a pivotal part of the offense. Top 40 pick. Don't mess around. Take care of business. I said it on Friday. That's precisely what the Patriots did. The money was known. This is not a surprise that it was $11.143 million. The money is known. The money is slotted. You understand what you're getting. The question was, how much of that was going to be guaranteed? How much of that money was going to be guaranteed? And how much was Henderson going to get as a signing bonus? That's what the conversations were about. What's the percentage of the guarantee and what's the signing bonus? And the Pats, they did business right. Henderson is one of only a few guys from the second round that got all of his money guaranteed. One of a few. So it's not like everybody in the second round is getting fully guaranteed contracts. Henderson is one of the few that got every single cent guaranteed. So good job by Elliott Wolf. Good job by Matt Groh, who's working on contracts. Obviously, good job by Vrabel. Good job by Robert Kraft and ownership. They got the deal done. You give them the fully guaranteed money. That's fantastic. Here was Mike Reese on the TreVeyon Henderson deal over the weekend at ESPN. A holdout. We talked about a possible holdout, right? Would Henderson hold out? Trey Harris held out before he reached agreement on his deal with the Chargers. Was Henderson going to be willing to hold out? That was a question that we had last week. Well, according to Reese, he wrote a holdout was never a serious consideration, according to sources familiar with the negotiation. Reese wrote that the sides committed to taking a patient approach on how much of the contract would be guaranteed based on what happened with other second-round picks around the NFL. When contracts for other second-rounders were finalized across the league on Friday, Henderson's deal came together quickly. So why did it take until Friday to get the deal done? Because the Patriots and Henderson's representation were waiting to see what the other deals looked like. The guys who were drafted ahead of Henderson, what percentage of their contracts were being guaranteed? What did the signing bonuses look like? So it sounds like, according to Mike Reese, who is, as we know, one of the best in the business, Mike's awesome. It sounds like, according to Reese, Henderson's camp and the Patriots camp, they were aligned on this thing. And the agreement didn't happen early because the Patriots, I don't think, were super excited to set the precedent of fully guaranteeing the contract if they didn't have to fully guarantee the contract. And I'm sure Henderson's representation wanted to wait to see, are other guys getting their deals fully guaranteed? Because if they get their deals fully guaranteed, then we feel like we can make that push to get TreVeyon's contract fully guaranteed. So it sounds like both sides were on the same page, and they were just waiting for the other deals to get done that were ahead of Henderson so they could have a basis to hammer this thing out. And they got it done. They hammered it out. And that's excellent because you don't have any hard feelings, right? A holdout was never in serious consideration. Henderson was there at OTAs. Henderson was there at rookie minicamp after missing the first day. Henderson was there during mandatory minicamp. Even when his contract wasn't done, he was out there. He was on the field. He was working. And that goes a long way for the coaching staff and ownership to believe this guy truly gets it. He's not letting this negotiation get in the way of his progress during a very critical rookie minicamp phase. And so Henderson seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. Patriots understood the gravity of the situation. They handled it professionally. There was no bitterness, which means, again, no hard feelings. So now you look at Henderson, and he is getting exactly what he wanted, which means he's going to be very happy. Henderson gets a fully guaranteed contract. He got, I think, about $4 to $5 million of the $11 million in a signing bonus. So they gave him a good chunk of cash right at the top of the deal. So Henderson has to be very happy. Contract gets done. He gets guaranteed money, gets a good signing bonus. Now he gets to focus fully on football. And you have yourself an explosive, happy running back in the mix. And we've waxed poetic about Henderson on prior podcasts and prior episodes. I am absolutely pumped to see Henderson's impact on not only the running game, but also the passing game. His ability to line up different spots at the line of scrimmage, in the backfield, his ability with taking a screen pass and taking it to the house for a home run. He's got that ability to do that explosivity that we have discussed. He is going to impact this offense right away. I do not think Henderson's going to be a guy who's going to be sitting there watching from the sidelines against the Raiders in week 1. If he is healthy, I think he's going to get out there. He's going to play a decent amount of snaps. I think this offense understands what he brings to the table. I think they understand that he's going to be crucial to the third down offense with his pass protection ability. I think McDaniels loves the idea of his versatility. So I am very excited. I am very excited to see Henderson out there working with this offense for both the run and the pass. And this gives Henderson the opportunity to hit the ground running. You don't want any kind of delay. You don't want any kind of holdout. It's your rookie camp. You want to get out there day one, and you want to be doing everything that you can possibly do with every single solitary fiber of your being to make sure that you are 100% ready for your first NFL game that counts. And with the deal done and Henderson right there, ready to go, day one, it's exactly what you want. It is exactly what you want because now he can hit the ground running. Terry jumps in with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Terry. Welcome back to Live Pods. Cannot wait for Wednesday. It feels really good to do a live podcast, a live stream today. The last couple of weeks have been somewhat challenging, but everything has gone fairly well. And very excited for football season. Very excited for here. Very excited for the Locked On Patriots podcast that we do. Very excited to work with Greg. Some optimism about this season. I've got optimism about this year. I really do. Last year we went through it, and I always had the disclaimer. Every time we talked about that team last year, especially during camp, I said the great unknown is the coaching staff. We don't know what these guys are going to do. We don't know what we don't know. With this coaching staff, we do know. With this coaching staff, we've seen Vrabel in action. With this coaching staff, we know exactly who Josh McDaniels is. So we do know a lot more than last year, thankfully. Chris Chapman, $10 super chat. Thank you, Chris, jumping on the super chat bandwagon. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing that and sending the $10. Kevin Roberts throwing a wrestling comment out there, ready to see what OTC1 is going to do tonight. Yeah. Raw was pretty hot last week. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Vrabel. I think this is going to be a completely different training camp than we saw last year. And this is going to be a team that's going to understand the details. It's going to be a staff that's going to be very, very detailed in their work and their approach. And TreVeyon Henderson out there, day one of the most exciting rookies that I think, if he stays healthy, going to be one of the more exciting rookies in the league. And I'm not just saying that because he's a Patriot. He's from Virginia. I covered Henderson. I kept an eye on him early on, through his early days in college. I watch college football every Saturday, and I was a TreVeyon Henderson fan even before he was drafted by the Patriots. And I think he brings that home run threat that this team desperately needs. It's great that they took care of business. They stood on business, and they got the deal done. All right. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 7,000 subscribers. The likes help the algorithm. The comments help the algorithm. Let me know how you feel about Mike Vrabel. Let me know how you feel about camp being 2 days away. The Henderson deal getting done. Pretty good vibes today. We will be back on Wednesday at 3 p.m. live. Until then, appreciate every single one of you and wish all of you well.